Hey guys, it's Cam from Craft and Tailored, and in this episode of What Is On My Wrist, we are talking about a 1960s Movado Sub Sea. The reference is 206-705-504. That was a mouthful, but it is a really cool watch. It's worthy of some wrist time. It is super funkalicious, and on top of that, it's freaking incredible. So, wanted to talk about it. From a horological perspective, there's a lot of cool history jam-packed in these watches, and we don't really see a lot of these, so that's why I've been wearing it, and that's why it's freaking awesome, and that's why it's worthy of some wrist time. So let's talk a little bit about Movado and where they were at in the 1960s, because I think in like the later part of the quartz crisis, Movado just started producing these watches with black faces and like a little thing, and you know, it's kind of like a fashion watch today. Movado released water-resistant wristwatches in the mid-1930s, which is a long time ago, and by the 1960s, Movado was producing dive watches to contend with the era's greater known offerings from names like Rolex, Omega, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? But what is really interesting is Movado was really pushing the design elements of their watches. So that's kind of why this watch exists, and it's freaking awesome, and it's got a ladder brace. Okay, let's get back into the history before I start gushing and geeking out over this watch. So this specific Movado features a really impressive 17 jewel Zenith 146 HP, which was also used in the Zenith Super Sub Sea refs and a bunch of other chronographs that Zenith and Movado and a couple of the other brands produce. So there's a lot of collaboration between Zenith and Movado, and even Zenith and Rolex, and this is a good example of where there was a lot of like synergy and collaboration, and I think that's what makes these watches very highly collectible. And the Movado Sub Sea Chronographs are one of the most sought after in the vintage Movado dive watch lineup. They're just really, really cool, and as you can see, they're again like this ladder bracelet, and you know, this is kind of reminiscent of Zenith and some of the other companies that were kind of making dive watches in this same era. This specific Movado, being that it's referenced 206-705-504, is very interesting because it is a dive watch that was also a chronograph that also leveraged kind of a super compressor style case that kind of has like Movado Zenith-y look. It's really, really rad. Let's dive into the details and talk about why I love it. The case is huge. It is 41 millimeters. So think about this. This watch was produced in the later part of the 1960s. To have a watch that is 41 millimeters in case size is really, really awesome. Kind of almost reminds me of like a Panerai style case, even though it's not, but kind of. Also, like the case back is kind of Panerai-esque, right? So we've got a very interesting case back style, which uses a very specific wrench to open a watch like this. And again, it kind of has like this like stepped lugs. Really, really interesting watch. Ladder style bracelet, which is kind of a love it or hate it thing. I think on a watch like this, I really love it. And I just kind of like ladder style bracelets. I think the design of these bracelets is just really, really cool. So essentially we've got a folded link bracelet that's kind of similar to a Rolex Oyster style bracelet, but then what we have is this you know, center link that is kind of just left open. So we actually have a diver's extension. So this was used to essentially, if you don't know already, diver's extension actually folds into the clasp. I'm not sure if you can see that or get that there, but diver's extension folds into the clasp, and the purpose for diver's extension is to basically fold out so that you can have an extra extension in the bracelet to fit it over a wetsuit without adding a link. So there we go, right? Diver's extension. So the bracelet is actually a GF bracelet. You'll see GF bracelets in Heuer, in Movado, in Zenith, in Universal Genève, a lot of different, you know, companies that were leveraging, you know, these bracelets in that era. The condition of this specific example is freaking insane. It's where do we begin? Where do we even begin on this? The bracelet, you know, shows a little bit of stretch, but it's a ladder folded link bracelet. These bracelets just show a little bit of play and stretch. Sign Movado. So the condition of this watch is it's just insane. I don't think the watch was worn much. It's a very unique looking watch, so maybe it wasn't that popular, but I freaking love this watch. So being that the movement, again, is a manually wound zenith movement, let's manually wind it. Let's see if it's got any crunch effect. A little bit of crunch, a little bit of crunch. Manually wound movement, oversized case, caution orange inner rotating bezel, which is freaking awesome. So super interesting design. The crowns on this are crosshatch. So I'm not sure if you guys can see that. And we'll definitely provide some close-ups, but crosshatch crowns. Super big lollipop sweep seconds hand for the chronograph. Freaking awesome. It's in orange. And the hands are really awesome. So there is a distinct difference between the hour and the minute hand, which I think is incredible. So a watch like this, I definitely was produced for meeting function, purpose built, but it's just insane. I mean, look at this thing. Very, very unique and striking watch, definitely worthy of some discussion point. This is a watch collector's wet dream, in my opinion. I know that I have dreams about watches like this. Sorry to get creepy on you guys, but I do. It's freaking awesome. Everything from the inner rotating bezel, to the color of the bezel, to this like weird Panerai style case that is also super compressor style, the crosshatch crowns. I mean, there's so much interestingness happening in a watch like this. And also, they're pretty freaking rare. This is the only one that I have ever held in my hand. It's the only one that I've seen. If you do an internet search, you won't find a lot of these. They're really, really rare. And to find one that is in this condition is just awesome. So that's the reason why I'm talking about it. That's the reason why it's on my wrist. I will provide a link in the description below so you can check this watch out. Kind of a rare watch and definitely not an easy price point of entry at $10,500. In any case, I will provide a link in the description below, guys. Be sure to check this out. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram and be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.